Welcome to the Fantasy Baseball Beat, part of the Pitcher List Podcast Network. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Torres. I'll be your host today. Myself and my co-hosts, Mike and Dave, are very happy to be joined today by Colorado Rockies beat writer for MLB.com, Thomas Harding. We'll be talking with him about players like Zach Veen, Michael Toglia, Ezekiel Tovar, and much else regarding the Rockies. In our fantasy follow-up segment, we'll be talking about whether... scratch that, because I just fucked up the whole thing. Sorry. Okay. We're going to start over, okay?
Yeah.
This is the fantasy follow-up. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no, fantasy follow-up. Nah, I'm all messed up. All right.
Yeah.
Take two. All right. Welcome to the Fantasy Baseball Beat, part of the Pitcher List Podcast Network. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Torres. I'll be your host today. Myself and my co-hosts Mike and Dave are very happy to be joined by Colorado Rockies beat writer for MLB.com, Thomas Harding. We'll be talking with him today about players like Zach Veen, Michael Toglia, and Ezekiel Tovar. But first, we got to talk about the man of the hour, and that is Zach Veen. I mean, everybody is eyeing him as a pickup in fantasy right now. Maybe not everybody, but a lot of people. People are thinking about how much they're going to bid on him this weekend if you're in a Fab League. So since we're talking Rockies today, figure might as well start there. We'll have Thomas on the second half of the show, but first we're going to have more of a fantasy-focused discussion. And again, we're going to start with Veen. So my question to you guys is, how aggressive are you going to be in terms of targeting Zach Veen? And we're talking about the Colorado Rockies right fielder, just got called up, major stolen base asset. Obviously, it depends what your needs are, right? If you're a stolen base needy team, Zach Veen should be a big target for you. But I want to start there and kind of take a deeper look at Veen. So what do you guys think? Are you going to be aggressive with him, or are you looking at some of the maybe swing and miss in his profile and are a little more tentative about taking a chance with Veen? I'm going to start with Mike.
Okay. So I can answer this question. In the last day, as you guys know from our group chat, I lost Wyatt Langford and Jackson Merrill on the same team. And it's a league. It's my home league. And so we have, free agents are there for the picking when you want them. So there's no fab process, whatever. It's first come, first serve, which is really weird and archaic. Veen was the first guy that I picked up. And it was before, just right when he was coming up. I have the same issues that you have, but here's the thing. This is a points league. You don't lose points for the strikeouts and the swing and miss. You get points for stolen bases, you get points for runs, and you get points for home runs. This guy has a really good stolen base profile, as you mentioned. There is some swing and miss there, but if the Rockies just stop what they're doing with the insanity of doing Mickey Moniak does not need to play, and just let this guy play, just let him go and see what happens. I'm willing to give him a month's run just to kind of see what he gets to in that league. Mm-hmm. In terms of my higher profile leagues, I think a judicious spending for me would probably be a 10% maybe kind of situation. I don't see myself going past that at this point, unless something drastic happens between now and then with injuries. I don't think I'm going to overbid on Veen, because I do have a little bit of concern that this might be a shorter stay and not an elongated major league run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's definitely fair. I mean, you always worry with the Rockies, are the Rockies going to Rocky, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are they going to, give Veen a week of regular at bats? We're all going to get duped into thinking he's a full-time player, and then all of a sudden you're going to have Mickey Moniak taking starts from him, or whatever, Nick Martini, whatever retread of the of the month the Rockies are on. This team drives me crazy. So you have to factor that in to your decision, right? I think he's going to go in some of the main event leagues that he was available last week. He was going upwards of 20%, over $200.
Wow.
So, it's going to depend. He's gotten off. He started the last 3 games, got his first RBI today. We're recording this on Thursday. So, I mean, the early returns haven't been great. The swing and miss that some people have been concerned about is certainly been there, and it's very, very limited sample. But yeah, I mean, the fact is, like, if he gets full-time run, and he's in Coors Field, and you need stolen bases, I think it makes sense. And he's someone that I will be targeting in my leagues. Still trying to figure out exactly, how aggressive I'm going to be. But let me hear from you, Dave. Where are you at on Veen, and is he someone that you're going to be targeting this upcoming weekend?
Yeah, I actually got him in one of my leagues, and I mistakenly bid only $4 out of $1,000 budget, and I got him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I got lucky there. I am in on him, but I'd like to hear later from Thomas, because I feel like the Rockies are they might be on the verge of like a new way of doing things with promoting Veen, promoting Dolander.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see what Heath says about how the team is changing things, because they have a nice youth movement going. But as for Veen, I am in on him, but I do worry about the injury history. He's a guy who over the last 2 years, he had a right thumb, a lower back injury, left hand ligament surgery, and left wrist inflammation.
Mm-hmm.
So I am worried about that. And I am worried about something that the GM Bill Schmidt said. He said there were things that we talked to Veen about when we sent him out that we wanted to see. And he's not a finished product by any means. We're going to have a lot of work to do up here, but it's better than getting off to a slow start.
Mm-hmm.
I found that very interesting in the sense that he's not where they want him to be. But if we find out that the Rockies are just in the process of, let's see what we've got here, let's work with what we've got, and we can get some major league experience to make them better, then I'm in. But if they're the way that they used to be and they just keep promoting, like the guys that you said, giving them the opportunities like Moniak, then my interest will waver a bit. But I'm in for now, but I'm watching out for the injuries, and I want to see what how they're going to progress as a team.
Yeah, good points there, especially with the injuries. And, I almost, when evaluating him, have looked at the injuries as kind of like, obviously they're not a positive, but people have been down on Veen because, he was a big prospect, right? I believe he was a first rounder, top 10 pick a couple years ago, and he hasn't quite lived up to that pedigree.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of excuse that with, well, the guy's been injured, like he had a major injury 2 years ago, and, it took him a while to get back, took him a while to kind of like get back to where he was. But that could also be seen as a negative, right? Like, this guy hasn't been able to put together really a fully healthy season. And I think that's a consideration too. If you're going to go really big on Zach Veen, you also, like, he's an elevated injury risk. He hasn't shown it that he can stay healthy. So that's, I think, a really good point. So yeah, definitely stay tuned. We'll see what Thomas has to say about Veen and the direction of the Rockies here. But wanted to go to the other flavor of the week. Everybody's talking about him on Twitter. Veen had like a day or two in the spotlight. But since then, it's been all Kyron Paris. This guy is taking the league by storm. He is third overall on the Razzball Player Rater for the season. Just how we drew it up, right? It's like Aaron Judge and I forget who else, but then you see Kyron Paris, and I assume most people didn't even, unless you're playing in a super deep league or a dynasty, probably don't know who he is or didn't know who he was. But the guy has 5 home runs, 4 stolen bases, batting .440.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's sustainable, but so listen, he's gotten very fortunate, right? I mean, his batting average on balls in play is .429. He has a 50% home run to fly ball rate.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously we know there's going to be some regression there, but I see both sides. Like, some people are like, this dude is a league winner. Like, he'll regress, but still what he's showing is, this power speed combo. Apparently he worked with Aaron Judge's swing coach, over the offseason. And a lot of people are pointing to that. People are pointing to the fact that he put on weight. I don't know. I don't know if that is just a narrative, and we want to cling to that because we see these results and we're like, well, it's got to be something, right? Or is it just a really hot streak, right? Like there's some people who are like, nah, he's 240 hitter career in the minors. Like he's always had contact issues. He's never been a big prospect. Like there's not much. This is a nice hot streak, but not much else. So I don't know where I lean towards it's a hot streak and not much else. But let me hear from you guys. Where are you on Kyron Paris?
Go ahead, Dave.
Well, you brought up the judge's trainer. So I read up on that, and he said a common problem is shifting from the back leg to the front before the swing. And he wants his batters to launch from the back leg, and then as the bat is launched, that's when the weight shifts to the front. So it gives them more time to read for better swing decisions. I was personally out like you until I saw a video of him today. The difference in the swing, and it is noticeable about how much more time he has. But I really think at the end of the day, as much as he could be this year's Cedric Mullins, he might just be the guy that they're waiting for until Christian Moore is ready to get called up. And whether or not this can sustain, I don't know. I don't think at this level it's going to sustain. But I think for someone who he needs to be challenged more. And I think pitchers are going to challenge him more. And I'm like, even looking it up now, he's chasing even more than he used to. So even though he's making better decisions, I think it's going to catch up with him.
Mike, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I've had hot 34 at-bat streaks too, guys. Like, not at the major league level, but there were times where I couldn't do anything wrong hitting the ball, right? And those are few and far between. I think that Christian Moore is obviously the guy that they really are kind of targeting here. I have him in tout on my bench. I'm waiting for him to get called up and get that shot. I like the story of it. I mean, he's been really hot. He's been helping a lot of people win these first few weeks and getting, stashing some of those category points or looking at the, stat fillers that you need to have. I think one of the things that you got to remember, he does have a little bit of prospect pedigree. He's a second-round pick. So they're obviously high on him or were high on him at one time. Chris, you talked a little bit about the minor league stats. Dave, you talked a little bit about the swing and miss stuff and how that's kind of coming through. Here's the thing I'll leave you guys with to think about. Anybody can go to Aaron Judge's swing coach and not get the same results that Aaron Judge gets. Aaron Judge is probably the best right-handed hitter in baseball. He's a complete freak of nature. So I don't know that I necessarily buy that, unless you have Aaron Judge going there. I don't know how much correlation you can really put to that. A lot of people would do that, and it works really well for Aaron Judge. I don't know how long it's going to work for Kyron Paris. It's a great story for now. I don't think it's going to sustain itself. My guess is by June 1st, we've got a Christian Moore sighting at second base for Los Angeles.
Yeah. Yep. That all makes sense. It'll be fun when we look back and, in like July and we're like, remember Kyron Paris? Like, remember that, crazy week he had? I don't know.
I hope I'm wrong, you love stories like this, but
right.
The reality of it is that there's for every one guy you have, like what Dave calls with Cedric Mullins effect, you got 12 guys that are back in the minors by the end of May,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's, if this story about him working with Aaron Judge's coach wasn't out there, I mean, it would still be a big deal, right? Like the guy has 5 home runs and 4 stolen bases. But I think the fact that we can connect those two things is making people believe like, oh, well, like maybe there is something to this.
Mm-hmm.
I will note though, like if you look at some of the underlying, like the contact rate, for example, it's at 63.8%. which is, really poor. So whatever he did, whatever swing adjustment he made is not necessarily, it's not helping with his contact, as well as his max EV. Max EV last year was 110.3, at least in the major leagues. And this year it's 108.1. So I could buy in more if, let's say, we saw like a 112 or 113 max EV
Right.
from Paris. And it's like, oh,
Mhm.
okay, this guy did add power.
Right.
But yeah, like the hard hit rate is through the roof. But again, like you said, anybody can get hot. If you're a major league player, anybody can get hot and there is such a thing as being hot. I don't want to hear you nerds telling me there's no such thing. It's a thing. It's a thing. All right. Anybody could get hot. And I think, it more than likely that's what we're looking at. So maybe he makes me look silly. I do have FOMO though. I wish I was way more aggressive with him last weekend. But yeah, for anybody who took the dive there, definitely it's paid off this week. All right, we are going to transition to our next segment, and let's talk to Mike about some bullpen BS, because it's all BS, man. It's all, I can't curse on it. We're a pitcherless podcast. We're, family friendly show, so I can't say it, but there's a lot of BS going on in bullpens around the major leagues. So, Mike, I don't know how you do it. It really seems like I can't deal with it as a player, having to write about it like you do. I don't know, but I'm going to start here because there's been some turnover, as we would expect any season. There's going to be turnover at the beginning of the year, and some of the newly minted closers that we've seen. I want to ask you, out of these three, and maybe if there's anybody else you could think of, please throw them in there. But out of these three, Seth Halverson for the Rockies, Luke Jackson for the Rangers, and I was going to say Junior Alvarado. He's a horse racing jockey. No one here is into horse racing like me. Jose Alvarado for the Phillies. Out of those three, who do you think is most likely to keep their job as closer for the majority of the year? Assuming they all, I don't even know about Halverson, but
yeah.
Go ahead.
It's hard to say, right? I mean, these things, like you said, are constantly shifting. They are fascinating to watch. I know for many people, it turns their stomach to watch it, and I understand that. At the beginning of the season, before things started up, I was really a champion of Halverson. He's not pitched great so far in Colorado. I think he's the type of guy, as he learns to do the job, is going to be prone to some blowups. He's clearly got the stuff to be able to do the job. They're kind of rocking, as we talked about. Tyler Kinley continues to be there, and they want to continue to give him opportunities. Victor Vodnik got a save last week. They're kind of throwing things at the wall to see what sticks. So Halverson, I think, is a good stash right now. I do think he's the best of the bunch, and I do think he's got the best stuff to be the closer. I don't know what Thomas will say about that, but I think that Luke Jackson, great story. Coming back from injury, landing in Texas, ascending to that top role when everybody thought it was going to be Chris Martin. He screwed up a lot of fantasy players by becoming the closer there. I don't think it lasts. If you go back to a few years ago when the Rangers won and they started the season with Will Smith as their closer, we know that Bruce Bochy prefers to have one guy be earmarked as the closer, and he will ride that guy until the wheels fall off. I think he'll do that with Jackson. I just don't see stuff in the profile that makes me think that Jackson is the guy long-term. He's been in a lot of bullpens. He's got a lot of experience. I don't think he's the guy. I am a little excited about Jose Alvarado right now, I will tell you. The Phillies bullpen has been a bit of a disaster. I don't know if people have been kind of paying attention to that, but, they have four guys that are all making around the same amount of money. I don't know if you guys know that. They're all about making $7.5, $8 million a year with Romano, Alvarado, and Strom. Guys like that. Romano has fallen very, very flat, as you guys know. He's had some real serious problems with finding the strike zone, and there's some concerns that maybe he still has some remnants of what was going on last year. Here's the thing about Alvarado. What do we know? He's got incredible velocity. 99.9. He's in the 100th percentile for fastball velocity. We know that he is extremely hard to hit. He's got a 44% K rate right now. But the other thing that's really cool about him is that with that sinker that he throws about 63% of the time, his ground ball percentage is in the 95th percentile right now. He's getting incredible extension, 7 feet of extension on his pitching. He looks absolutely filthy, unhittable, nasty right now. The thing that we got to watch with Alvarado always, always, always is the walk rate. Right now, it's 7.4%. That's doable. His average, he's been 10, 11% at all times the last 3 years, and it always gets him into trouble. I think Alvarado, though, is the type of guy that could end up being the real deal. He's still only 29. He's got a high velocity arm. If he can control the walks, I think he's got the best chance of these three to remain the closer, even though it appears he has the most competition in the bullpen at this time in Philadelphia. Don't sleep on Ryan Kerkering either. He's kind of lurking out there as well.
Mm-hmm. All right, very good. So a resounding, it sounds like for you, it's definitely Alvarado out of those three. I'm so tilted. I'm so tilted about the Luke Jackson thing, man. I mean, I felt like Chris Martin was going way too cheap in some of these late drafts. Like some of my big drafts, I took Chris Martin because I'm thinking like, who else could it be? Right? Like the Rangers, we expected them to sign Yates. We expected them to sign Robertson. They didn't sign anybody. And apparently they were strapped for cash. So I'm like, it's got to be Chris Martin. And he's done well. Like he's
right.
He's pitched really well this season, but Bochy is really like whatever Luke Jackson showed in spring training really won Bochy over. And that's his guy. I mean, he went to him even after that first, I think it was opening day. He lost the game for them. He went right back to him the next day. So
yeah, he did.
I don't know. I feel like looking at the profile, I'm like, this guy's not going to keep the job. Like, what does he see? But there's Bochy likes him, so there's something to be said for that. The manager sees you as the closer. What are you going to do? Skills.
Yeah, that's very true. And when you look at what they have as options there, it does make sense. And when you look back on it in retrospect, that he has Martin and Garcia as the setup guys, because that's the roles that they've served before. I mean, right. Martin has a few saves worth of experience, but they don't really have a strong option there looking at it to say, oh yeah, this is a guy that will eventually be the closer. I mean, Josh Boers is hurt, had the shoulder debridement surgery. God only knows when he's going to come back. They have Bradford, Gray, and Leiter out right now, although it sounds like Leiter, Dave would know better than I do. Leiter might be on the comeback trail a little bit more sooner than those other guys, but it's not like they have a bunch of candidates there that we know of at this time that they're super high on. So we'll see.
Yeah. Let's talk about Detroit. Another messy bullpen here.
Boy, you ain't kidding there.
I mean, how is David Robertson not signed with them already? Like, I don't get it. How did they not go out and get anybody to add to that bullpen? I mean, I know they got Tommy Kahnle, and people are kind of assuming that he's the guy, which makes sense given kind of process of elimination here. But what is your take on it? And I wonder if Jason Foley is he's lurking in AAA. He's pitching really well there. 4 scoreless innings, 6 strikeouts. He's probably pissed off, right? He's like, I had this job last year. They sent me to AAA. Like, he's probably on a mission to get back and prove him wrong. So what do you see happening with this bullpen?
Yeah, it's a really interesting situation. I mean, I think right now we've talked about it for a couple of weeks now. I think it's a co-closer situation with Kahnle, Brisky, and Holton. I based on the way AJ Hinch likes to use his bullpen, he likes to use those guys at any time, anywhere that he feels that he might need to. The only save on this team in the last week was Brant Herter on Tuesday, and he threw 40 pitches to get that save. So it was a game that he had been in, and he just ended up getting the save. Yesterday, Tyler Holton got a chance, and he lost. Ended up losing the game. It wasn't a save chance, but Holton is a guy that can serve a variety of different roles in that bullpen, and I think they prefer to use him in that way. Brisky is a guy that's got pretty good stuff, but doesn't necessarily also seem to be a closer. Could be like a 2-inning guy that they use to bridge the gap. Kahnle's got a little bit of experience, but he's also 35. I like what you said about Foley. I think they sent him down to kind of work out some stuff, I think, and then I really think that he's a guy that is going to come back. And don't forget either, too, Alex Lang was hurt last year, and he was a guy that they were high on as the closer as well. He did get shut down from throwing a couple of days ago, though, and is going to get a period of rest because he's got some upper arm inflammation, apparently. So I do think eventually they're going to come back with that. And I think the reason why Robertson hasn't signed is I think Robertson is waiting to figure out which teams are for real before he signs anywhere. He's 40 years old. He doesn't have time to waste with the White Sox and, crappy teams like that. He's going to wait and see who the teams are that need somebody. And he could very well end up back in Texas as well.
Oh man, imagine that would be something, man.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, you will keep us posted. I'm sure we'll be checking back in on that bullpen. But we are going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with Thomas Harding. All right. So just note the time, and I didn't want to get into anything new, and then he should be on any minute. So we'll just break. Oh boy. All right. So do you want to just after him, do you want to just go to the mental health minute? We'll save that other segment for next week or
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you got to be out here
25 minutes. So
yeah.
And we've got a 8:00 hard cap.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you guys for accommodating me, man. I'm sorry. It's been kind of a crazy week with all this stuff and getting back from Florida and then the kids' orchestra stuff tonight. I went and picked up my mom, so she's going to come to the show and
nice.
Just I had kind of a crazy week at work. I just had a 30-year veteran that I've worked with by every year that I've been working there just come in and resign today. She's taking a Department of Corrections job for a couple dollars an hour more, and it was a pretty difficult conversation, although, since I'm dead inside, I don't really have a lot of emotion. And she had a lot of emotion, and I was like, well, whatever. I'm sorry. Go take the money and run. Go for it.
Department of Corrections, man. I don't know. You'd have to pay me more than a couple dollars more.
Well, they're having some difficulties financially, family-wise.
Okay.
But to your point, it's like an extra $4,000 a year. It's not like it's going to move the needle,
Right. All right, Thomas is here.
There he is. Yeah.
Do you see him?
No.
Okay. Oh, hold on. Let me do the 4. There we
go.
Thomas.
All right, Thomas. Thank you so much for joining us. How you doing?
I feel good. I feel clean. Thanks for having me.
That's good. All right. So we were just on a break. I'm just going to introduce you quick and then we'll get right to the interview.
Hey, got a question. Can you very quickly send me this link on Twitter? Because I'm having a hard time hearing, but I think through my computer it would be better.
Oh, sure. I'll do it too. I'll send it to you right now.
Or can you, is there a way to turn on? I've got my sound up as high as I possibly can.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to copy it and send it to your Twitter again real quick.
Okay. All right. I'm going to get off here. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I sent it to him. I sent it to his phone. I probably should have sent it to his Twitter to begin with anyway. I sent it to his phone and it wasn't thinking.
Come on, Mike. Start thinking.
I'm thinking.
Tovar got injured yesterday. Should I change the question at all or no?
Just like a serious injury or?
It was a hip. He was out today because of a hip. Let me double check.
That could be a problem.
Yeah, it's frustrating when we record this on Thursday and then things change.
I know.
By Saturday.
Yeah.
Like the Imanaga thing we talked about last week. He went out and had like 0 walks the next game. Like on Friday, I didn't realize he was pitching that day, and it's like, jeez.
Yeah, you know how much shit I'm eating on that.
Should we ask him if we can change the question about Tovar, or just ask him?
Just maybe ask the question, but just mention, he left with an injury, and
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I know some people like it. Like that's all.
Oh no.
It looks like I'm seeing that looks like he's backstage, but I don't see a video picture or anything. Do you see that, Chris?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't see a picture either.
Oh yeah.
We can
All
hear
right,
you
well-
fine.
Okay. Well,
Your sound is
okay.
really good.
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
weird because I can. Let's start the cam.
Oh, there we
there
go.
we go.
Let me get.
There he
I
is.
started earlier. It was. I guess it was a false start of the cam. Huh?
There.
5-yard penalty.
5-year penalty.
Let me call up the script because honestly, I don't memorize it.
No,
No
I sent
problem.
it. Do you want me to text that to you too, Thomas? Would that be easier?
Yeah, that'd be easier.
Okay.
And but either way, I'm improvisational. I wouldn't say I'm the Miles Davis of these things. I can improvise.
you'll be
One
just
second,
fine.
I'm going to get something for this.
Next time, Next time you come on, we're gonna call you the Miles Davis of the
All right.
of it. The improvisational master.
That's right. Well, speaking of improvisational masters, I'm going to grab this, put this here. See if that's a little better. Camera-wise. I feel I'm a lot more square to the plate. Okay, there we go.
All right,
As
you're ready to
Patrick Waller
go.
always say, be square to the puck. Yeah.
You're clean. You're square to the plate. You got good sound. Ready
You
to
got it
go.
going on. You got it
We
going
got
on.
it all
All
set. All
going on.
right.
Beautiful. All right, let me get us started here again. Welcome back. We are here with Thomas Harding, Colorado Rockies beat writer for MLB.com. We're so happy to have him back on the show. Thomas, nice win today for the Rockies. Brenton Doyle had a huge day, 5 RBIs and a home run. Zach Veen with his first career RBI. So we'll get into that. But first, how are you doing?
I feel good. I feel clean. I've got what it takes to win a championship. Maybe the Rockies don't yet. But they badly needed the win here. After the 17-2 loss the previous night, and there was a lot of angst and disgust after that one, and rightfully so, because they were terrible. So to come back, play well, especially when they're going to the West Coast to face the Padres and the Dodgers.
Right. Yeah, they needed that one. So let's talk about the guy who is getting a lot of buzz, I know, among Rockies fans, among fantasy baseball players, and that's Zach Veen. So my question for you in regards to Veen, because some of us that are thinking of picking him up in our leagues are a little bit concerned, right? Because we know the Rockies have this propensity to call up players and then not really give them full runway. They'll give them part-time and then they'll sub in a veteran and we'll take at bats away from them. So my question to you is, are they just going to give Veen the everyday right field job at this point? Tell us your expectations for the playing time for him, as well as what you've seen from Veen both on and off the field during the times that you've covered him.
So far, and from what has been said, they're going to give him a run in right field, maybe in left, some on the road. Left field is a lot bigger at Coors Field, so actually right field protects you a little bit. And it looks like they're giving him the run here. I mean, and unless things just fall apart. If you go back and you look, when they called up Michael Tolia at the start of last season, or when he came out, he played himself back into the minors and played himself off the field. Same as what happened with Jordan Beck. They expect Jordan Beck to be really good, but he was hitting himself into a hole. He wasn't really catching up with the fastball. We'll see him back. Veen will get his opportunity, but it will be performance-based. And I think that is one of the keys to a team like the Rockies. They have to give these guys a chance here. But I've seen so many youth movements where guys played no matter what, and either they buried themselves or they developed this thing within the club that it doesn't really matter how you perform, you get to play. So the Rockies are trying to balance that part of it. And over the years, that's where the criticism comes from.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense when you frame it like that. With Veen, I mean, I know, he just got to the major league team, but just wondering, based on interactions you may have had during spring training, over the past few years, wondering what you've seen from him, both on the field and in the clubhouse.
Tell you what, when you mentioned what you asking about just the feeling for Zach Veen, I smile immediately. He is a delightful young man.
Mm-hmm.
He is a little bit wild on the field. You don't know if he's going to steal a base, get picked off. You know that he's going to try to do something big. And this is a situation where the Rockies, I think they do have to be careful, because you want him to play the appropriate situation, but you also want that infusion. I think the Rockies over the years have been that type of team that everything is coloring within the lines. I mean, Bean, he'll color his hair. It's platinum blonde right now. And sometimes maybe eventually it'll be purple like the Rockies jersey. I know he wants it that way. But that's the type of guy he is, where he brings a little bit of excitement. And even in the in the 7-2 win over the Brewers on Thursday, they put him in the number 2 spot behind Brenton Doyle. I'd like to see that a little bit more often.
Yep. Yep. Interesting.
He is very, it's almost like you forget, because guys are so smooth about being in the major leagues and things like that. But this is a guy who came out of high school in 2020 where he didn't even get to play pro ball coming out. And he seems to relish every minute there. I mean, it's almost like in the best ways watching a high school player, because everything is new to him, and he's not so cool that he doesn't appreciate it, and he shows it.
Very cool. It sounds like the way he is. It reminds me a little of maybe because you mentioned the dyeing his hair, but like Pete Crow Armstrong. I heard someone comp Pete Crow Armstrong to him in terms of like their skills, right? Like 15 to 20 home run power with like 40 stolen base upside, and it sounds like there's more similarities between him and Veen than just that. So very cool.
Similarities, and I guess there are some danger points, like when you go into a year and like Pete Crow Armstrong, and you put that on your shoulders. If Veen comes up and he like his first hit was a bunt single, he ends up with a double today. As long as he's just figuring out ways to make contact and not try to put all of that on his shoulders, then I think he'll be okay. But that's one of the dangers, whether it's Pete Crow Armstrong or last year with Jackson Holiday.
We need more fun in baseball. I'm glad to see these guys coming up and playing. Thomas, a guy that you were mentioning a little bit ago and that we're interested in as well is Michael Toglia. And, last year he was kind of a pleasant surprise for the team, but he's really kind of struggled to start off 2025. The swing and miss element of his game really kind of looms large here right now. And a lot of people in fantasy baseball are concerned about that when it comes to looking at Toglia's profile. What do you think is going to happen with him, and how much of a leash do you think he has at first base right now?
Well, he started 101 straight games at first base, so there's quite a bit of leash going on here with him. And I believe that he is a Gold Glove type defender. Now, he's going to have to hit at some point. What we saw in that last game of the series against Milwaukee, he was able to finally get his first RBI, and this is a confident guy who has to maintain confidence in the absence of results. That is baseball. With Toglia, if I'm playing fantasy, I have to understand that there is a big swing and miss element, and there could be gaps in production with a guy like that. I know he's trying to close that swing and miss element to a certain degree, but he doesn't want to overdo it because he feels like he's a run producer. That's something that manager Bud Black talked about after the game against Milwaukee, the fact that he puts it on himself to produce runs, to get RBIs, those old-fashioned stats that matter actually in the score of the game. Maybe they don't matter in the analytics or when you throw everything on a computer, but it matters in the game. And he's put that on himself. And at times when he struggles, maybe that can exacerbate struggles. But when he gets going, it's almost like he forgets he's ever struggled.
Yeah. And the Rockies have a lot of guys like this, a lot of young guys who are just learning their way. And one of the guys that I wanted to ask you about was Ezequiel Tovar. He's already stolen 4 bases after only attempting 11 all of last year. Now, do you expect his aggressiveness on the base pass to continue? And do you think maybe this recent hip injury might change something?
Well, this surprised me a little bit. Early on, they thought that he would be a guy who could steal some bases, but he plays so much. He's a threat to play every game. Of course, they sat him the last game against Milwaukee because of the hip issue, and I think they have to be careful with this. And there were times last year that you saw the bat drag a little bit when he's built to play every day, but He does need a day off every now and then. I'm surprised that he has stolen 4 bases. If he wants that to be part of his game, then hey, that's a big thing for the fantasy player. He didn't really come out and announce that he was going to do it, but I see him as the type of guy that steals bases based on reads, based on reading the pitcher catcher, based on knowledge. He has decent speed, but not the type of speed that you would expect to steal a whole bunch of bases in a major league season.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to correct one thing. He's stolen 2 at this point. He's attempted 4.
Right.
So,
Thank
but
you.
still,
Yeah.
to me, that's pretty significant. I mean, he had attempted 11 the entire season in 2024. So,
Right.
that seems to be something that he's intentional about. We'll see what happens with the hip, and if he needs to slow down because of that. But let's talk about this organization from a broader perspective, Thomas. And I'm interested to know. I mean, this team hasn't done well for multiple years now, and I'm wondering, like, what is the culture around this team, around this organization at this time? And my follow-up is, where do you think they're headed at this point? Like, is there a shift in terms of how they want to construct a team moving forward? Are they going to deal with Coors Field in a different way? Like, where does this organization go from here?
A couple of things set back the rebuilding program. Number one was a number of first-round picks and guys that they really thought a lot of over the years. I'm talking about going back to 2018, maybe. They got hurt, and that set back a whole lot of things, because with the Rockies, and this is something that I think affects the culture of the team. Very rarely does a pitcher who has a real choice pick the Rockies. They read the stories about Coors Field. I've been joked about, even in the international young signing, those guys have TVs and the internet, and they know what Coors Field does. So they have to develop their own pitchers. And right now they have some veteran type pitchers. The starting rotation is done pretty well, but it hasn't really matched up with the position player group. With the position player group, it's puzzling to me, because there's a lot of swing and miss in there. There are a lot of big fellows with big swings that, as amateurs, hit some home runs, and the Rockies always are seeking that. Can they find a way to teach those guys to be a little bit more contact oriented, or can they reward some guys in the organization that are better at contact? Those are the things that, when I look at it, and I've brought this up a couple of times, I just wonder if maybe there's too much of the same guy in the lineup.
Mm-hmm.
But I think from a cultural standpoint, I touched on this earlier. They want young guys to play, but Bud Black wants young guys to perform, not just throw them out there. I mean, and I agree with this. This is something that Walt Weiss, the previous manager, said. What you do, because you're not going to build a roster of veteran players that you can put up on paper against the Los Angeles Dodgers. You have to wake up every day, figure out a way to win that game, wake up the next day, figure out a way to win the next game, and go on from there. And when they did go to the playoffs for a couple of years, they had the pitching, and they were able to get enough clutch hits to do it. So, yeah, they're not going to build a better roster than some of the teams in their division. Just financially, they're not going to do it. But can they win? Of course. I just think that they really need to take a close look at how they construct the lineup, maybe how they have their drafting and signing philosophy.
You mentioned them developing their own pitchers, and I wanted to follow up with, is Chase Dollander the guy who finally, we've been waiting forever, like who's going to defeat Coors Field, right? And overcome it. Is Chase Dollander the guy?
Okay, first of all, I'm going to correct you on that because I'm correcting myself. Chase Dollander.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Dollander.
Dollander, yes. And like I say, whenever I correct people, it's because I'm trying to remind myself. So it's not like I want to make anybody look bad here. So remember when, and it seems so long ago, 2017 and 18, they went to the playoffs with a homegrown rotation that, when you look at a lot of the traditional numbers, they didn't match up. But guess what? They led the division in innings pitched from starters. They're looking for workhorse type guys. And that's what Chase Dollander looks like to me. Kyle Freeland was one, Herman Marquez, and also Antonio Senzatella. Now, The question is, how do you adjust as your career goes on? And that's still an open question. John Gray got out before Coors Field got. You're watching Freeland and Senzatella and Marquez. Senzatella and Marquez had significant injuries. Freeland had some injuries. These guys, it looks like they've had to reinvent themselves, and they've stayed here, instead of going free agency. So they've had to reinvent themselves as they go. When I look at Chase Dolander, and it's kind of strange because their throwing motions and all look different, there is a lot of Ubaldo Jimenez in him. And Ubaldo, I believe, was the best pitcher this team has had. However, Dolander attacks the strike zone. He did in his first outing, but he gave up a couple of home runs. But he got 6 strikeouts. You know that he's going to be relentless in attacking the strike zone. He'll have to learn to throw good strikes. There may be some growing pains along the line, but you go back and look at his career at Tennessee and also his minor league career. Pitch counts, they're the kind of rule in the game that you run your staff with the pitch count. But you probably add 10, 12 more pitches because this guy can handle it. He's a big, strong fellow, strong in the lower half, and he prides himself on getting deeper in the games. He prides himself on the W. It's one of the things why Bud Black, I think, wanted to get him in there. Bud Black is a believer in the W because if you go to an alternate type of thing where maybe you have an opener and a few other guys, you will destroy your bullpen because the inevitable crazy game of Coors Field will happen. So Chase Dolander, he has that inner thing that he wants to pitch. He wants to stay in the game, and he wants to look at the guy across the field and say, whatever happens in this game, your ERA coming in may have been better, but I'm going to hold your team to fewer runs than my team is going to score. And that's how people like Kyle Freeland and Antonio Senzatella and German Marquez pitched well early in their careers and what they're trying to get back to.
For sure. Thomas, one of the things that I wanted to ask you about that I'm fascinated by bullpens all the time. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are on this bullpen. In the spring training, it was announced that it was going to be an open competition between Victor Vodnik and Seth Halverson and Tyler Kinley. So far, it looks like kind of a mixed bag so far. What are you thinking is going to happen with that bullpen? And please tell me it's going to be Seth Halverson. I'm kidding.
Right. Well, right now it's Seth Halverson, but let's look at this. I mean, after the series with the Brewers, 3-9 record. It's not like you have a lot of save opportunities with that. And a lot of times with a team like that, the save opportunities will show up as blown saves in the 7th or 8th inning. They're looking at Halverson simply because of the stuff, and there's a real pitch mix there. However, Victor Vodnik, to me, does look like a major league closer, so it is really hard to decide. And another thing that's happening, too, is that they have a lot of pitchers with minor league options. So there's going to be some yo-yoing between AAA and here, AAA Albuquerque and here. There's a guy there, Jaden Hill, that I'm expecting after watching spring training to be a really good late inning reliever. Is he a closer? I don't know yet. But the way this thing is going, where there's still competition going into the year, you never do know if Jaden Hill ends up closing games with this team. There's also Zach Agnos down in AAA who has the pitch mix a lot like Halverson, not as powerful, but pretty powerful. So if you're looking at the Rockies saying, gee, where can I steal some saves from the bullpen? I don't know that I can direct you in the right direction.
Right. And just as a follow-up to that, guys, just so everyone knows that's listening, the only save that they've had over the course of the last week was a 39-pitch effort by Victor Vodnik last Sunday. So just so everybody's kind of aware of that, I agree with Thomas. It's a bit of a crapshoot here at this point.
Yes, the save in a 12-5 game. Okay, so
right.
you try figuring out. But no, when they want to close a game, right now it is Seth Halverson.
Can you let us know is there a player currently in the minors or maybe on the 40-man that you think is most likely to make an impact at the major league level at some point this season?
It's weird because when they brought in Thairo Estrada to play second base, part of the reason was to give Adele Amador more time. And I think that's going to happen. They're going to give him more time. However, I look at this lineup here. And Amador, he switched from shortstop to second base, but it was not a very smooth switch last year. There's still more to do, but he was very improved in spring training. I keep looking at a lineup that needs guys that work counts and do the things that you need to do to string at bats together, guys that get on base. So I look at him, but I don't know that he fits because of what's ahead of him. The guy that I think is going to end up being a pretty good player, he was already here and got sent down, and that's Jordan Beck. Jordan Beck was not hitting the major league fastball. I've seen this with a few guys. Ryan McMahon was a classic example. It took into his second season for him to be a solid guy to go to, and he helped the team get to the playoffs in 2018. Jordan Beck, I'm not sure why he wasn't catching up to the major league fastball. I know he hit a home run in his first game down at AAA. I just think that he's going to be back, and he's going to figure it out at this level. And it may be this year, it may be next year, but I think he is going to be an impact player at this level.
Okay.
All right, Thomas, I got one last question for you. And this was from one of our listeners. My buddy, actually, Mike Murphy, wanted to know any updates on Drew Romo, Rockies' young catcher.
Yeah, I'm not sure the timeline, but he broke a finger, I believe, on his throwing hand, diving back to first base on a pickoff attempt. So he's going to have to get that healed and get back behind there. Romo, there's a lot of there's a lot of attention on him. There's some potential there, a switch hitting catcher, but catchers tend to take time. And offensively, it just wasn't there in spring training. Not sure exactly where it was. I know he had some throwing issues also last season. That looked a lot better in spring training. But can he get those two swings at the major league level? I think that when I look at the athletic ability that he has, he's going to have a major league career. How long is that going to take? It's not normal that 22, 23-year-old catchers are in the major leagues. I believe he was, the second youngest or third youngest, something like that, catcher in the majors last season.
All right. Thomas, we will get you out of here. We appreciate you so much for taking the time. We know you're super busy. You came on here right after the Rockies played an afternoon game. So, and this is your second time on the show. So we really, really appreciate you. If you could just take a moment to tell our listeners where they could find you on social media and where they could find your work.
Okay, on Twitter, it's @Harding@MLB. I'm also on Blue Sky. Those are two places to find me. And I think just plug in my name because that Harding_@_MLB. It seemed like there were a bunch of Thomas Hardings that had mine.
I was wondering what the underscores were about.
That is really complicated. But I think if you plug in my name and see the smiley picture, then you'll find me on social media. The other is you go to Rockies.com. I'm the lead reporter there. And each week, twice a week, I have a newsletter, and I really encourage people to look at those. Sometimes I will do some daily coverage in the newsletter, but that is something that's been very successful with fans because it comes to your inbox. You don't have to actually type in Rockies.com, although I think that's pretty easy, but to have it come to your inbox, that's a good thing.
Awesome. Well, you've been doing great work for a long time now. How many years have you been covering the Rockies?
I started in 2000, so this is my 26th year. First two with the Colorado Springs Gazette and the rest of it with the good old MLB.com. And I'm enjoying it. I mean, it keeps you young, you know?
Mm-hmm.
These guys, the players are, 23 to 35, 36 maybe, and they never get older. So why should we get older, right? We follow the sport. It keeps us all young.
Yeah.
Amen to that.
That makes sense. Good stuff, Thomas. Well, thank you again, and hope to have you back on sometime soon.
Thanks for having me.
All right, take care.
Thank you.
All right. We're all set?
All set. Appreciate you.
Okay.
Thanks, Thomas.
And I'll tell you what, it was good to get that script that way. I knew what was coming. It was kind of cool. That's a smart move.
Yep. Yeah, we always try to do that. So
all right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right, we'll see you. I'm out of the studio. Have fun.
All right.
Take it.
All right, you got the time?
Yeah, just before 54.
All right, I'll do a quick break, right? And then, or I'll just say we're going to take a quick break, and then, or do you want to, or you could just put in the ad, right?
I'll just shove in an ad there. Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool.
Yeah.
All right, we are back, and we you just heard the interview with Thomas Harding. We're going to transition away from baseball stuff because we wanted to get to our mental health minute. And I just wanted to talk about the mental health minute for a second, because more than a second actually. We were talking about this segment off air, and we were talking about kind of like expanding it, and making it more of a central piece of the show. Usually we would save it for the end and do like 5 or so minutes, and we kind of just squeeze it in. And I think we kind of want to make it more of, this. We're going to put it at the end, but devote more time to it, basically.
Mhm.
And honestly, I think we put really good info out there. I think we get great information from beat writers. I think we all bring our own unique fantasy angle. But honestly, like, I think, guys, like, the mental health minute is probably our greatest value add as a podcast. There's so many fantasy baseball podcasts and other really good ones out there. And again, I think ours is in the same realm as some of the best ones. I'm a little biased, but I think we do a pretty good job. But I guess, like, I was thinking earlier this week, like, in the grand scheme of things, does it really matter that much? We give you like a hot take that maybe worked out, like it's nice, right? Hopefully it helps you win your league. But I just, to me, like, if we're going to put this much effort into the show, like, I want to make it have some value. So this is going forward. I want to devote at least 10 minutes to this segment. And I recognize it's not for everybody, right? Like, some people may just be like, I just want baseball stuff. Like, I don't want to hear about this. And that's fine. We'll put it at the end. You don't have to listen. But my goal is that we help one person through this segment per week. That's it. If we can help one person and give them something actionable that can improve their life in some way, whether it's related to mental health, physical health, and we know those are two kind of one and the same, but if we can help somebody, then the time and effort we put into the show, to me, is more than worth it. It's certainly not the money. We ain't getting rich doing this, not even close. But I want this. I guess I feel like I want this to have more significance. And I think it's we have a kind of a unique opportunity to package something like this with something that especially men are more likely to seek out, right? Like, most guys aren't going to go and seek out a podcast about mental health, right? Or coping skills or whatever, but yeah, they'll listen to a fantasy baseball podcast, or that's what they're into. So I feel like incorporating this into the baseball stuff, I feel like it's kind of a unique opportunity. So I just want to throw it out there. It's kind of something that I felt, going into the show, I wanted to share. But I don't know. Do you guys have any other thoughts?
I think it's very important, and I thought what you said was great. And just being a guy, it's not, I don't want to say it's not socially accept. It's not the norm for men, I think, at least in general, to seek out help or to say that I'm not well, or I need this, or I'm not having a good day. It's just, I don't know if that's just a stereotype, and I don't know if I could be way off, but it just feels like a lot of times the men are supposed to be, the big tough guys, and, just shrug off this and shrug that off. It's okay to not have a good day, and it's okay to not, just you're not feeling it today and you need some help, or to admit you need help, but that's okay. I feel like that all the time. So I have my own days, and it's okay. So
yeah, men are not given the language as kids to be able to express these things, and so it becomes a learned behavior. But we are humans who can learn, and it's really important to discuss these things and to bring up, especially when you're not feeling okay. It's fine when everything is going well to be on top of the world and act like you have the world by what, but the reality of the situation is that those days are few and far between, and there's a lot of people out there that are struggling mightily right now And we really do, I think, reach out to people with this and really do hopefully appeal, especially to guys who don't talk about these types of things.
Yep. Yep.
And I know we're just speaking on behalf of men because we are men, but to all the women out there who are listening as well, it's the same goes for you. So we're all going through it. So men and women.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, of course. I mean, but the reality is that our demographic is probably, 98% men, but absolutely, we're not going to cater what we do with that segment just for men, but just the realities of who our audience is. But all right, so the topic for today, so we're going to spend about 10 minutes, and what I wanted to talk about and ask you guys is the idea of negative thoughts. And I mean, we all have them, right? Some of us to more of a degree, or to varying degrees, right? Like some people are just wired to think more negatively, right? Whether it's genetics, whether it's environment, the environment they grew up in and the messages they've received. But we all have them, right? We all have that internal dialogue, and sometimes it goes negative. So I want to talk about what are some ways that you guys, when you get into that mode, when your mind is going towards more of that negativity, how do you get out of that? How do you cope with that? And how do you kind of come out the other side?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to start with you, Mike.
For me, people find this hard to believe when I talk to them, but I'm an introvert. And I'm somebody who only talks to people when I feel comfortable and have known them for a while, and will share things about myself with them when I get to know them a little bit more. My default, and this will surprise people, I think, my default is to be a negative thinker. Every night when I wake up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, because I'm in my 50s and that's the reality of my life now, my first thoughts are always negative. What if the day is garbage? What kind of tragedy is going to befall me at work today? Who's going to be sick? Who's calling in sick this morning and is not going to be able to work? What kid is going to need more help from me today than what they did the day before? And it tends to build the anxiety, and kind of, you start listening to those other voices in your head, and you start forgetting what it is that's really important. And for me, I've become a big fan over the last couple of years of doing the really deep breathing exercises and being really intentional in what I do with that. I will actually sit down in a chair. I'll get out of bed. I will sit down at a chair in my dining room, and I will make sure that my feet are planted firmly on the floor. My palms are on my thighs, and I just really try to focus on getting the air in, getting the air out, getting the blood flow to the front of my brain, which is the emotion center of our brain, and making sure that I recognize that the truth about me is in the middle. I'm never as good as I am on my best day, and I'm never as bad as I am on my worst day. And the truth of that is in the middle. And here's a really funny thing that I'll share with you to be lighthearted about it. Last year when we were at Disney, my kids conned my wife into buying this gigantic stuffed Eeyore. And it's a weighted Eeyore. His butt is literally weighted. And it's on our couch. And at night, when I have a hard time falling back asleep, I will take that weighted Eeyore. And you know what I love about it? Besides the fact that it's weighted so it's heavy and fat like me, what I like about it is that how many times have you ever seen Eeyore with a smile? Not too often. I mean,
that's why he's Eeyore. Yeah.
Okay. So he's got a big smile on his face. And I put that on my stomach, my chest area, and it automatically calms me down. I know that I'm 51 years old. I'm sleeping with a stuffed animal almost every night. I know that sounds crazy, but it's no crazier than your mouth tape. It's crazier than your bone broth.
We're all doing crazy stuff, man.
Drinking garlic, right? It works for me. It works for me, guys. So I know that might sound childish or babyish to people, but it works for me. It helps me with my negative thoughts. It allows me most of the time to fall back asleep. And I recognize, hey, it's 2:00 in the morning here. I can think about this at 6. And that really helps me. The other thing that really helps me is touching base with you guys on a daily basis, right? The thread that we have with just who got hurt, and Dave being the thief of joy in my life with injuries, or just funny stuff that we find online that we share with each other. It reminds me that through this podcasting, no matter where it goes, whatever, I found two great friends and two people that I know have my back at the end of the day. And I know that they know that I have their back at the end of the day. So to me, that's what it's really about, is that community aspect of it. So that's it for me, really.
Well, some awesome tips in there. With the deep breathing and just trying to be mindful and present, and Eeyore. I may try that. I don't care, like I don't, but the fact is, like, that's helpful because, like, it's just like grounding, right? Like, to feel that on you, like, it's, just kind of brings you back to the present moment, right? Is that kind of what you're saying is the benefit of it?
Yeah, for sure. For me, like, it really helps me stay grounded, and I'm not afraid to be vulnerable. Obviously, I just was, and I'm probably going to get some feedback from people about sleeping with Eeyore or whatever. It works for me, and I when the first time I did it, I was like, hey, look, I'm desperate for a way to fall back asleep and get these thoughts out of my head. And I had done my breathing, and I was feeling pretty good. I'm like, I wonder if weighted Eeyore on my stomach area will help me, and it really does. It really does. And there are a lot of times I wake up in the morning feeling more refreshed and better. And I wake up and there's the Eeyore with his smile kind of glaring at me, Thank God I don't use alcohol and drugs the way that I used to, because it would really scare the crap out of me. So
yeah. Well, listen, man, I talked about, me taping my mouth shut at night, like you said, drinking bone broth and eating garlic and all weird stuff. So we've all got our stuff for sure. But one last thing about what you said I really liked was the idea of not being as good as you are on your best day, not being as bad as you are on your worst day, and kind of finding that middle ground. And I think that's just so important. And, I kind of always try to, like, the idea of the middle ground is something that I try to keep front of mind all the time. Yeah. Because a lot of times I know for myself, my thoughts will go off into one extreme or the other. And I tend to be like you, kind of like skew towards that negative. It's just like my default. And those of us have more anxious personalities. Like that's kind of the way we're wired, right? We're looking for the next threat, right? Like that's kind of how anxiety works. We're very hyper vigilant, and we're trying to find that next thing that's, that could be a threat to us. So yeah, just remembering to try to find that middle ground and not live in those extremes. Dave, what about you? What is it that you try to do when you find your thoughts going off into that negative direction?
Well, it's funny, Mike, that you said you're an introvert. I am one too. I'm very much an introvert. But unlike you, I think I'm more of a positive. Like I go to the positive and that's a fault to me, because I'm always thinking, the best is going to happen, or, it's going to be fine, because don't worry, it's going to be fine. And I don't really have an explanation why, but it just will be.
Except with baseball injuries. I don't think you do that with baseball injuries.
And that's the irony of it all, because now I write about injuries all the time and I expect the worst. So I don't know if that's some sort of balance. There's the fantasy game and then there's real life. I have no idea. But one thing that works for me, because I am a worrier, WORR, not a warrior. Well, I guess I could be, but I worry and I think things through, and I think of every possible solution. I'm like a flow chart. If this happens, then I'll say this. If this happens, I'll say this. But when I have my bad days, when I do worry a lot, or what works for me, I can sleep it off. I go to sleep. I can shut my brain off and I can sleep. And I find when I wake up the next morning refreshed, I'm ready to tackle, I'm ready to go at it. And I usually come up with a solution that I didn't think of yesterday. So for me, what works for me is just processing my brain and saying, listen, I'm done with this for the day. I'm going to lay down. I'm going to forget about it. I'm going to watch some baseball or do whatever I got to do. I'm going to take some sleep, get some sleep, wake up in the morning, and I'll deal with it then. And for me, that works.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, sometimes I like to think of the negative voice in my head, like that inner critic. Like I try to like put an image to it. Like I try to picture it like this like nasty looking gremlin dude that, just like I want to envision like fighting that, little creature that's telling me all of this negative stuff, and kind of like embody it in some way. And yeah, so sometimes I get like pissed at it and I'm like, just shut up, like I just maybe it sounds crazy, but like I try to like have a conversation with it, um, and push back against it. Another thing I try to do sometimes, depending on kind of what the context is just like acknowledge it as just like this harmless thing that just, it's there and I don't have to give into it. I don't even have to pay it any mind, and kind of just use this like kind of acceptance approach that it's there and I don't have to react to it. One other thing, and we could have this discussion for the full hour, but just the last thing that I'm going to mention, and we could touch on this if people want to hear more about it, but I like to use a method called the 5-4-3-2-1 method, and it's a form of grounding. Mike talked earlier about like grounding with breathing, and this is another kind of mindfulness and grounding activity, and it's very simple. So you go through these 5 things. So first thing, acknowledge 5 things that you can see where you are in that moment. Mm-hmm. Acknowledge 4 things that you can feel, that you can touch. 3 things that you can hear. 2 things that you can smell. And 1 thing that you can taste. And for me, it'll probably be garlic because that helps my immune system. But that's not the most pleasant thing. But yeah, I try that next time you find yourself like totally just engulfed in your own thoughts, and if they're particularly negative, use that method to kind of ground yourself, get into the moment, and like by you focusing on those things, it just like your focus is elsewhere, right? You're not focused on that negative conversation that you're having with yourself. So a simple thing, just like deep breathing, it's very simple but yet very effective. So that's it. We're going to leave it there. I hope people found that helpful. Again, we're going to continue the conversation. We'll be back with another topic related to mental health next week. We'll be back with another episode. We're working on a guest for next week, but we'll also be getting you some really good fantasy baseball information. So thank you so much for listening. For Dave Funnel, for Mike Carter, I am Chris Torres. Thank you again for listening to the Fantasy Baseball Beat.